Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your learning sources, unpack them, and really pull out the key stuff so you can get informed, but, without feeling totally overwhelmed.
And today we're tackling a source called Navigating Media Forms and Products in Depth.
Yeah, specifically looking at Component 2, Media Forms and Products in Depth. This is from the WJEC ADUS's A-Level Media Studies spec.
That's the one. So think of this deep dive as, well, kind of a shortcut. We're aiming to get you comfortable with what this part of the exam actually involves.
Exactly. Our mission, really, is just to break down the main bits of this component, make it clear, make it engaging, help you see how it all connects. If you've got the source, great, follow along. So where do we start? What's the sort of overview?
Well, Component 2, it's a pretty significant part of the A-Level. It's a written exam, lasts 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and it's worth 35% of your total mark. So that's 90 marks writing on it.
Right, so it's a biggie. Definitely need to understand it. How's it structured then, this exam?
It's broken down quite neatly into 3 sections. You could almost think of them as like 3 different media worlds you need to explore.
Okay.
So first, there's Section A, television in the global age.
Right. TV?
Then Section B, magazines. Mainstream and alternative media.
Magazines, okay.
And the third one, Section C, media in the online age.
3 different worlds. That's actually quite a useful way to picture it. So in the exam itself, what sort of questions come up in these sections?
Well, in each section, you'll face one of 2 things. It could be one question split into 2 parts, where each part focuses on one of the specific set products you've studied for that media form. Or you might get one single, longer, extended response question.
And that would cover both products.
Exactly, yeah. It'll ask you to discuss both of the products you've studied for that section, probably linking them through a theme or an idea.
Okay, that makes sense. That gives us the basic layout. But I guess it's not just about knowing about TV, magazines, and online stuff, is it? There must be a particular way you need to analyze them.
Oh, absolutely. That's where this thing called the theoretical framework comes in. It's absolutely central.
The theoretical framework. Okay, sounds important. What is it? Why do we need it?
Think of it as your essential analysis toolkit. These are the concepts, the lenses you use to properly dissect and understand any media product you look at. There are 5 key parts to it.
5 parts. Okay, what's the first one?
First is media language. This is all about how meaning gets created. So you're looking at things like forms, style, codes, conventions, the building blocks of the message.
So like the editing in a film trailer or the colors used in a website design, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Then second, you've got representation.
Representation, right.
This is about how media portrays people, places, events, issues. How are things being depicted? What ideas are being put across about them?
Okay, who gets shown, how they're shown, what messages that sends. Makes sense. What's number 3?
Number 3 is media industries. This looks behind the scenes, really. It's about the processes, the production, the distribution, the circulation of media products.
Ah, the business side of things.
Yeah, kind of. Who made it? How did it get funded? How does it reach us? How is it regulated? All those industry factors.
Right, like understanding Netflix's model to understand why certain shows get made.
Exactly. Couldn't put it better. Number 4 is audiences.
Audiences, okay.
So, who is consuming this media? How do they interact with it? How are they targeted? How do different people make sense of the same text? It also includes things like fan culture.
Okay, people on the receiving end.
And the 5th one. The 5th element is media contexts. This is about the wider picture. The historical period, the social situation, the cultural background, economic factors, political climate, all the things surrounding the media product that influence its creation and how it's understood.
Got it.
Yeah.
So language, representation, industries, audiences, and context. 5 key tools.
That's your framework. And the crucial thing, as the source points out, is you need to apply all 5 of these elements when you're analyzing the products in each section: TV, magazines, and online media.
Wow, okay, so it's comprehensive. Right, let's pick up that toolkit then and step into the first media world. Section A, television in the global age.
Yeah, Section A really zooms in on TV, not just as a national thing, but as this, well, global force. Think about streaming services, how shows travel now.
Like Squid Game, right? Suddenly everyone everywhere was talking about it.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. And you can analyze that using the framework, It's media language, those striking visuals, the symbols worked across cultures. The industry side, well, Netflix's global platform was obviously key. Its representation of debt and desperation resonated with global audiences. And the context of economic anxiety in many parts of the world played a huge role, too.
Yeah, good points. It really took off.
Yeah.
So for this section, the source says, we studied 2 contrasting TV shows from different cultural contexts, maybe like a Scandi noir drama like The Bridge.
That's the kind of thing, yes. You need that contrast. And when you're analyzing them, you focus on specific areas. For media industries, you'd look at global production, global distribution.
How it gets made and seen around the world.
Right. And the difference between, say, public service broadcasters, like the BBC here, versus commercial channels or global streamers, you look at the economics, the funding, any regulation, how they market these shows internationally to find their audiences.
And speaking of audiences, what specifically do we need to consider there?
You'd think about national versus global viewers. How do they target specific groups in different countries? And definitely look at things like online fan communities, how they spring up around these shows.
Right, people watching and how they connect. So that's the industry and audience side. What about the actual content of the shows?
That brings in media language and representation. You need to analyze the genre conventions.
Genre conventions.
Yeah.
Like the typical ingredients of a crime drama, for example.
Exactly. The gritty look, maybe, the detective figure, the mystery structure. That's the media language and representation working together.
Yeah.
Does the show stick to the rules or does it mix things up? This connects to what the theorist Steve Neal said about genre.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
Well, basically that genres are recognized through repetition, the familiar bits, but they also rely on variation, difference, and change to stay interesting and evolve. So you look for that balance, and you closely examine how different cultures or social issues are represented within the show itself.
Okay, so conventions and representation. And I guess the last piece is media contexts.
Absolutely. How do these shows reflect these social, cultural, maybe political situations they come from? What do they tell us about those societies?
So whether it's The Bridge or maybe something like Black Mirror or Killing Eve or Tehran,
Yeah.
the examples you study become windows onto these bigger issues through that framework?
Precisely. It's about seeing how TV works in and reflects our connected world.
Okay, that makes sense for TV. Let's switch gears then. Section B Magazine's mainstream and alternative media. Sounds like comparison is key here.
It really is, yeah. The UK magazine scene is perfect for that kind of analysis. So for this section, you study 2 magazines in depth.
2 specific ones.
Yes, and the source sets up a specific comparison. You need one contemporary magazine, something current, and one historical one from before 1970.
Okay, present versus past.
And also, one needs to be a mainstream commercial magazine, you know, the kind you see everywhere, and the other has to be an alternative one, something outside that commercial mainstream, maybe with a smaller circulation or a niche focus.
Ah, so you've got that mainstream alternative comparison too. Contemporary versus historical, mainstream versus alternative sets up some interesting contrasts.
Exactly. It's designed for comparative analysis. So when you look at them, what do you focus on? Well, again, the framework.
Right, so media industries first.
Yep. How are they produced? How are they distributed and circulated? What are the business models? You'd expect differences between a big glossy mainstream mag and a small independent zine, or between a 1960s mag and one today.
Yeah, definitely. And the look and feel, the media language.
Crucial for magazines. You analyze the design, the photos, the fonts, the layout. How do these choices create the magazine's identity? How do they appeal to the reader? And importantly, how might they subtly push certain viewpoints or ideologies?
Okay, and representation must be huge in magazines, especially comparing those different types.
Absolutely. How are different social groups represented? Or different issues or ideas, and how does that compare between your mainstream and alternative examples? And, very importantly, how might representation have changed between your historical magazine and your contemporary one? That links directly to changing social contexts.
Right? And who reads them? The audiences.
Exactly. Who are they targeting? How do the content and style try to connect with that specific audience? Mainstream mags often go for broad appeal. Alternative ones might target a very specific niche. You need to analyze how they do that.
And finally, the media context for magazines.
You need to think about the historical period, the social trends, the cultural values that influenced the magazines when they were published. Comparing the context of your pre-1970 magazine with today's context for your contemporary one will be really revealing.
Yeah, that comparative angle seems really central to understanding magazines. Okay, let's move to the final world. Section C, media in the online age. This feels like the one that changes the most rapidly.
It certainly does. It's incredibly dynamic. Section C is all about the huge changes digital tech has brought to media. Think about online creators, YouTubers, influencers.
Like Zoella or KSI you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, people with these massive online audiences, or just how central online news sites are now. So for this section, you'll study 2 contrasting online media products in depth.
2 online products.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the focus here using our framework?
Well, for media industries, you look at how digital tech has just completely shaken up production, distribution, circulation. How have traditional media companies tried to adapt? Have they struggled? What new online-only businesses have appeared?
And the audiences. I guess the relationship there's totally different online.
Oh, massively. It's much more interactive. The source mentions Henry Jenkins and his idea of participatory culture.
Participatory culture.
Yeah.
What's the gist of that?
Jenkins's point is basically that audiences online aren't just passive consumers anymore. They actively participate. They create stuff. They share. They comment. They remix. The line between producer and consumer gets really blurry. You need to explore that whole dynamic shift.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You see it everywhere. How about media language online? It's not like print or traditional TV.
No, it's different. You analyze things like interactivity, clicking links, navigating, the use of hyperlinks, multimedia, embedded video, audio, the user interface itself. How do all these online-specific features create meaning and affect the user's experience?
Okay. And representation online, is that different too?
In some key ways, yes. The internet offers huge opportunities for self-representation. Individuals, maybe minority groups, can create and share their own stories, their own perspectives, without needing traditional media gatekeepers. So you look at how people represent themselves and how different groups are represented or underrepresented online.
Right. And finally, media contexts in the online age.
You look at how online media reflects what's happening right now socially, culturally, politically, often in real time. The source gives an example, like maybe you study an online magazine aimed at a specific minority group that directly shows how digital platforms can serve particular communities and tackle relevant contextual issues very directly.
It's fascinating how it's both disrupted the old ways and created completely new ways of communicating and connecting. Okay, so we've explored the 3 worlds. Now let's just nail down the exam structure itself. We need to know what we're facing.
Right. So, as we said at the start, 3 sections, TV, mags, online. Each one is worth 30 marks, so 90 marks in total for the paper.
Equal weighting.
Yeah.
Got it.
And within each section, remember, you'll either get that 2-part question, 1 part on each of your studied products, or you'll get 1 single longer essay question that asks you to discuss both products together, usually focusing on a specific theme or concept from the framework.
And for those longer essays, I guess you really need to show your analytical skills.
Absolutely. The examiners are looking for, well, properly developed arguments. They need to be coherent, make sense, relevant, actually answer the question. Substantiated, backed up with specific evidence and examples from the media products you studied, and logically structured.
So just describing what happens in the TV show isn't enough.
Not at all. You have to analyze using the theoretical framework. And crucially, you need to use and ideally evaluate relevant media theories like we mentioned, Neal or Jenkins, and use the correct subject-specific terminology throughout your answers. That's key for hitting the higher marks.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up then, component 2. The big takeaway seems to be, it's all about applying that theoretical framework language, representation, industries, audiences, contexts, applying it consistently and analytically across TV, magazines, and online media.
That's the heart of it, yeah. You need to understand how these different media work, how they make meaning, how they represent things, how the industries operate, how they connect with audiences, and how they sit within their wider contexts.
Right. It really gives you a structured way to think about media, which actually leads to a final thought for you listening. Thinking about this framework, how could you maybe start using it, even informally, to analyze the media you consume every day?
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know, the shows you stream, the websites you visit, the social media feeds you scroll through. If you started consciously thinking about, say, the representation or the industry behind it or the language it's using, what extra layers of understanding might you find?
Definitely something to mull over.
It is. Anyway, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Component 2.